Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I'm begging Marvel Rivals players to stop giving up on matches so early. It feels like players jump into a game, and if things don't go right instantly, they are automatically checked out. Whether they start flaming their teammates in chat, or they surrender way earlier than necessary, as is the case in the footage that you'll see. The enemy team gave up after the first round without even attempting anything different. They didn't try new characters, they didn't try different roles, they didn't do anything to adjust when things aren't going their way. And it's something that, as somebody who flexes quite often, is very infuriating, because if somebody isn't having success on Duelist, then I don't mind swapping to that role if it'll help the team. I don't mind swapping characters if those other characters are going to be more successful. For example, when I'm playing Doctor Strange and I face an Iron Man, I'm not overly concerned. But if I'm using a Penny or a Groot and I'm unable to block the Iron Man shots consistently, now all of a sudden I consider swapping just to make sure that that character is doing less damage to our team. Because a lot of times it's as simple as some minor tweaks that can make a world of difference. If you have a Vanguard who's getting chewed apart by the DPS, you might be able to swap. If you have a Wolverine who's destroying you, you swap to Magneto, you can bubble to get yourself out of danger, and now all of a sudden life becomes a lot easier, not only for you, but also for your teammates, because they can target other characters as you are staying alive and you're not getting completely annihilated, and then they're getting dealt with by those characters because you're at a player disadvantage. And so I just want players to not flame their teammates as soon as they get a couple deaths early on in the game. I don't think surrendering after one round is the call, especially considering the possibility of doing something different, getting to the point earlier. Especially the team we faced had a Penny Parker. We didn't allow them to get set up very well, and so because of that, it made their life a lot more difficult. If they get to the point early, they're able to establish control of the area around the point. Now all of a sudden their whole gameplay might look a lot different. And so it's just something that's been kind of weighing on me as I see more and more teams absolutely give up at higher levels. I'm only in Platinum, so I'm not like at the upper echelon. I almost made it to Diamond, and then I dropped down just a little bit. Platinum has been up and down quite a bit for me, solo queuing. But I've also seen far too many people quitting at that level, far more than I saw at Bronze and Silver. Bronze and Silver, people just almost don't know any better, and they just keep banging their head against the wall until something works. And you can one-trick your way through Bronze, Silver, and even a lot through Gold, even if you aren't an insane player. Like Necros can one-trick with Spider-Man all the way up because he's one of the best players in the game. Everyone else who one-tricks with Spider-Man, once they hit a certain skill ceiling, they are going to start struggling, especially when the enemy team is playing counters to the way they want to play. Like if you're Spider-Man one trick and you see an enemy team that has a Mantis who can sleep you, Luna Snow who can freeze you, and then a Namor who constantly has turrets shooting at you, that might be much more difficult than a team that has characters who are unable to defend, an Adam Warlock who you can jump, or other characters who don't have the same level of defenses against that type of character. And this is where, again, understanding team composition is the one thing that I wish players would really pay attention to more often. Not only team composition that they're running, but also enemy teams as well. You can run a Thor or Brawl tank if they are not your only tank. Running only a Thor can cause a lot of problems because you can't soak up enough damage oftentimes depending on what team composition the enemy is running. You might want to run a Loki and Adam Warlock combination, but the likelihood is you won't get enough healing from those two together. Whereas if you have one of them and then maybe like a Luna Snow or a Cloak and Dagger who is able to, or even a Rocket who's able to spam heals, now all of a sudden you're going to get enough healing to sustain yourself in the fight. And this is where I know everyone likes to play their favorites. They might only have certain characters they're able to play, but every player should have, at minimum, two characters they're comfortable with at each role: Duelist, Vanguard, and Strategist. The reason for that is going to be flexibility, so that way if they need to change, if something isn't working, they have a backup option. And number two, if somebody else is struggling at a certain role, you might be able to help them out. Whether it is going with a third strategist, whether it is going with a solo Vanguard because the enemy team is just outputting too much damage and your Vanguard isn't surviving long enough anyway, you might as well dish out a bunch of damage instead. There's a lot of those changes that can be made if you understand how to play enough characters and really understand how that works. Plus, if you plan on climbing in competitive, which if you're playing the mode, I would assume most people do, once you get to Diamond, if you are a one-trick who becomes well-known, you're likely to gonna have your character banned, or if you're playing one of the meta characters, they might be banned anyway, and you need to be ready for that as you get up in ranks. I saw a TikTok of a gamer who only one-tricks Iron Man, and if anybody else locks Iron Man on their team, they'll leave. They had like a 15-hour ban from competitive because of how many times they quit because they couldn't play their Iron Man. And that's the extreme example, but it just shows how the mentality is for a lot of people. If they can't play their favorite characters, they either are going to throw the game, which I've seen before, not really participate all that much, or just quit, which is actually insane and something that I think nobody should be doing. But at the end of the day, everyone should be trying to have fun in the game. If you are trying to climb competitive and that is where you enjoy the game the most, then just be aware that having some flexibility is going to help out, especially if you're solo queuing. It's much different if you are running with a trio and then each one of you can fill a certain role and then everything else can be kind of sorted around you guys. But when you're running solo especially, I would imagine that it can be incredibly frustrating, which is understandable, but you need to be flexible and don't just give up the moment things start to go wrong. I've pulled some insane comebacks in this game, and it's probably the most satisfying thing to do, to be honest, in my opinion, is that you are down bad, the team is really struggling, you're down a capture point, the other team is all the way almost to winning the game, and you win it at 99% or in overtime. It feels really good, and I highly recommend everyone try to chase that feeling as well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like the video as always, comment, subscribe. My name is JoPa. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.